Hey guys, welcome back to Critical African Thinkers. How's everyone doing? As you know, this is a place where we examine everything under the microscope of logic to ascertain what is most factual and logically consistent. So today's show, we're going to be talking about um, the ongoing Israel, US, Iran war. I mean, the shit wars, the Epstein wars, the Operation Epic Fury slash Epstein Fury slash epic failure that's currently going on. So it's about day 8 or day 9 of the US launching an unprovoked attack on Iran. And we have seen the developments. There's been a lot of predictions as far where this was going to go. Many people are saying, some people are saying that Iran is going to be decimated. Other people are saying that Iran is going to be able to hold its own against the US. But there is one person that I found his analysis quite spot on, which is Professor Jiang. He's a Chinese professor of history. He has a show on YouTube which he calls predictive history, and he's been able to make some accurate predictions about things that were going to happen, and they happened just as he said they were going to happen. For example, he predicted that Donald Trump was going to win the last election. He predicted that Donald Trump was going to launch a war against Iran, and he's predicted that Iran will be able to win this war, not by defeating the US militarily, but being able to hold its own against the US. Now, in one of his recent videos, he essentially told us, or he in that video said, how Iran can cripple the West in one move, specifically the US. So I'd like to just go through this video and just react to it. So let's get into it.
So we will know how this war develops just based on geography, okay? So this is a map. And this map, even if you don't really know the war, even if you don't know the participants, even if you don't know the weaponry, this map will tell you exactly how this war will progress. All right, so some certain things to keep in mind about this map. This is what we call this area, okay? Really small, about it's 33 kilometers wide, okay? People can swim across it. It's really, really narrow, okay? This small area, guys, it's called the Strait of Hormuz. All right? And it's important because it's really the center of the world. This one area is the nexus, the pivot of the world. Let me explain why. First of all, from the GCC, you have 20% of all the world's oil flowing through this narrow strait. Where does it go, guys? It goes to Asia, India, Pakistan, South Korea, China, Japan. India depends on 60% of its oil from this area. China depends on 40%. Japan, 75%. Prime Minister Takaichi of Japan has said that, listen, if the Strait of Hormuz closes, we will run out of oil in about 8-9 months.
So I think what the professor is saying is making some sense, because if you look at right now that Iran has closed the Strait of Hormuz, nothing is going to pass through that place. And they've been attacking ships, especially US or Israel-linked ships that are passing through that Strait of Hormuz, because it's a narrow band, it's a narrow stretch. It's easy to hit anything on that place. Trump and the US administration have been saying that they were going to be escorting vessels passing through. Well, good luck with that. That narrow strip means that the US ships are going to be very vulnerable to Iranian missile attacks. So if the US is wise, they're not going to be able to do that. So effectively, Iran can shut down 20% of the world's oil trade in an instant. And that would have reverberations for global trade, the global economy. For once, so this guy is not only trying to destroy his country, I mean Donald Trump, he's trying to destroy the world economy as well.
Entire Japanese economy would collapse in 8-9 months if the Strait of Hormuz were to close. And guess what? The Iranians have closed the Strait of Hormuz. Okay?
You can see, how selfish Donald Trump is. I mean, he secured Venezuelan oil before launching his attack. So the US is in a sort of reasonable position. But are the US allies, are they going to be able to, is the world going to be okay with all this?
So we can expect that the entire global economy will suffer greatly over the next few months. All right, so that's point number one. Point number two is, okay, so the GCC sends oil across the Strait of Hormuz, and what do they get back in return? Food, guys. All right, so people don't appreciate the GCC, but it is really the linchpin of the American empire. Because what is the American empire? The American empire is the petrodollar. All right? The idea of the petrodollar is this. The US dollar is worth nothing. It's only valuable when people want it. But the GCC says that if you want oil from us, you have to pay us in US dollars. Okay? Then that is the basis.
I don't understand why the GCC would give the US that much power over the economy. I mean, with all the US bases just little all over the Middle East, just spread all over the Middle East like leprosy. Why would you allow what do the GCC, what do they get out of that arrangement? Right now they're being pummeled by Iran, and the US is realigning or sending their missiles, most of their missiles, we are sending them to Israel. We are assigning them, that's what I was looking for. They're reassigning them to Israel, to the defense of Israel, meaning these Gulf states are just left open, vulnerable to Iranian missile barrage, which is, and they're suffering for something that is not of their direct making. They're not the ones who attacked Iran. They just hosted the people who attacked Iran, and they're getting beaten for it. So what do they get out of this exactly?
Of the value of the US dollar. So, if the GCC collapses, the American economy and the American empire both collapse at the same time. The problem, though, is the GCC is an artificial construct of empire. It does not exist naturally. Why? Because there's no food, there's no oil, no water. Okay, guys? No food, no water. So these cities are able to grow in the millions because of all these petrodollars flowing in. If you close off the Strait of Hormuz, there's no food coming in, right? They're all going to starve.
Seems reasonable. No food coming in, no oil going out. Your economy is starving. Your people are starving.
How much food does the GCC get from overseas? 80%. 80% of all the food it consumes comes from overseas, that it imports. It doesn't grow by itself, it imports. All right? So the Strait of Hormuz is really key. And again, the Iranians will close it in order to strangle the global economy and therefore bankrupt the American empire. All right? Second thing you will notice is these mountains. These mountains is what we call Iran. All right, this is Iran. This is GCC. Okay, this is not a fair matchup, right? Because these are mountains. And what can you do in mountains? Well, you can hide rocket bases. You can hide drone bases. You can hide missiles. And that's the entire Iranian offensive strategy, all right? From here, they can hide missiles and drones from which to attack the GCC. And what are they attacking? They're attacking three things, right? They're attacking American military bases. American military bases. That's number one. Okay. Is it possible for the Americans to defend against these attacks? The answer is no. It's not. It's the silliest thing in the world. You have all these bases in the Middle East, but you cannot defend them against the Iranians. That's kind of strange.
So the US, like I said in my last show, that there are three legs to international power. For you to be able to project power in international scene, one is diplomacy, the strength of your diplomatic presence, right? Which the US seem to have a lot. Until recently, the US, most of the world just follows what the US is, follows their trajectory, follows their presidents, and so on and so forth. So the US had that. That's one arm of international power. The other is perception. There is always been this perception that the US is not vulnerable to attacks, that it's a suicide mission. It's not possible for you to even conceive about striking the US militarily, hitting the US militarily. All that is began to crumble now that all the US bases in the Middle East are on flames. Do you know what that does to US reputation? It makes them look like Russia, like a paper tiger. You see what Ukraine is doing to Russia at the moment. Russia could not win a war against Ukraine going to almost a decade now, right? So the myth of US invincibility has been shattered by this. Where are the soldiers? Where are the US soldiers in the Middle East? They are holed up somewhere. They're hiding. They are in hotels. They're not in the bases, because if they were in the bases, the US would have sustained thousands of casualties at this point in time. So the US is losing that myth of invincibility. That is the second leg of international power. Diplomacy is gone. This second one is gone. The perception of power is gone. The only thing the US has now is force. And force alone doesn't do shit. So you can drop as many bombs as you want to drop on Iran. It's not going to change much. I mean, at the moment, the US has dropped, the US and Israel they've struck Iran more than 7,000 to 8,000 times. Yet, the Iranian regime hasn't capitulated. They aren't asking for a ceasefire, and they keep sending salvos of missiles. In fact, the Iranians are escalating more at this point in time. So, the US's empire is about done for, thanks to Donald Trump.
Okay, but that's number one. Number two is oil and energy. How hard is it to blow up an oil field with a drone? Not hard at all. Can you defend these oil fields? No, you cannot. All right. Number three, and that's most important, is water. Okay, you guys don't know this, but the GCC has little access to fresh water. So the only way that it can produce water is what we call desalination plants, okay? These factories that take salt water and then through an electrochemical process, turn it into fresh water for the population to use. 60% of the water supply in the GCC comes from desalination plants, okay? 60%. Is it hard to blow up a desalination plant using a drone? The answer is, it's very easy. You understand? Okay? So you have this absurd situation where Iran is a mountain fortress where it can hide its offensive capacity, and the GCC, it's just this desert, this flat desert, and it is exposed to attack, and there's nothing it can do about it. Okay?
Yeah, they're just sitting ducks. They're sitting ducks. And they've put themselves in this position, aligning with the US. They did that to themselves. No one else. Nobody else did that to them. Allowing the US to wreak havoc across the region, using your land as offensive bases, well, you're going to bear the brunt of all this.
So at any point in this war, the Iranians can choose to just destroy the entire GCC, and there's nothing that anyone can do about it.
And that effectively destroys US presence in the Middle East. I mean, that is one of the greatest projection of US power around the world, the Middle East. If Iran is able to successfully drive the US out of the Middle East, that's a massive win, and that's a massive degrade to the American empire. Where else are they going to project this level of power? Are they going to project it close to China? Happen.
A weakness, okay? And this is fundamental. So Iran also has a water problem, okay? So for the longest time, they suffered a drought issue, okay? Just climate change. And so what the plan of the Israelis and Americans is destroy the water supply of the Iranians. Because the fortress, it is a mountain fortress, but it can also be a mountain prison as well, where people are trapped inside with no access to water. Okay, so what we're going to see right now, we're already seeing attacks on civilian infrastructure, hospitals. You'll see attacks on water supply, on dams, on reservoirs.
And that is expected, and I believe that the Iranian people have planned for all this. I think the Iranian government has made contingency plans for all this. I mean, they're saying, we are ready for the US. This has been in the long time coming. It had to get to a point where the Iranians would have been fed up with this bullying by the US. Bullying for decades. And I'm sure they're smart enough, they would have thought, the war with the US is inevitable sometime in the future. So we have to prepare ourselves. And this is the moment of truth.
On power plants. The idea is to make Iran so inhabitable that the people will have to rebel against the people, or there'll be a refugee crisis in Iran. Okay? So as you can see from this war is the end of the world. Okay? Both sides.
Nah, it's not the end of the world.
Have the potential to destroy each other. It's really a question of how far do they want to go. All right? We can also say this is almost a game of chicken. Okay? We can blow each other up. How far do you want to go? And the problem is this. The problem is that the Iranians are Shia, which believes in martyrdom. And you've killed the religious leader, the Ayatollah Khamenei. So they're willing to go very, very far. The GCC countries are Muslim, but they're materialistic. They love money. And also, most of the population are expatriates, foreigners. 90% of Dubai are foreigners. Guess what's going to happen?
Which is very true. I mean, of all the attacks that's been shown so far, when I see people recording those videos, they have Indian accents, they have foreign accents, so most of them are expatriates. They're all going to leave. The next chance they have, they're all going to leave. And what's going to happen to the economy of those GCC countries? It's going to crumble because all of its workforce, they're leaving. It's an unsafe environment to work, so they'll leave.
If they suffer, they're going to run away. Okay? So this is not a fair matchup. The big question that people have is, first of all, are the Americans going to use ground troops? Because the only way that you can defeat Iran is by using ground troops, okay?
And the Iranians are saying we're ready for that too.
The big question we will look at in the next few weeks. Will America send its army, 500,000, 2 million soldiers to topple the government? Okay, that's question number one. Question number two, nuclear weapons.
Even Russia hasn't been able to deploy nuclear weapons despite their war with Ukraine for years now. But you know what? The US might just be crazy. They are the only ones that have ever used nuclear weapons in combat. They might just be crazy enough to do that now. But it reveals something fundamentally, something very fundamental about the state of the US military at this point, that they are weak. If they have to go to the weapon of last resort against Iran, it just shows how weak the US military is.
If you're losing a war, would you choose to use nuclear weapons? Okay, that's another big question that we have, okay? Another big question that we have is who gets involved? Because this situation is so dire that Europe, okay, specifically Germany, France, and Britain are talking about entering this war. And guess what? If that happens, it is possible that Russia and China will also enter this war on the side of the Iranians. This is World War III.
I mean, Russia has already entered in terms of sharing intelligence with the Iranians, which is why they are able to hit US bases accurately.
Okay? Because of the importance of the Strait of Hormuz, because of the importance of the Middle East, everyone has to get involved at some point. And we're going to use game theory to really try to understand what's happening on the ground and where this could lead us.
I bet you didn't know this. In North Gaza, after the conflict, some families are so...
All right. So, again, the key is the GCC. All right? So the game plan is this. You have to destroy the GCC. Why? Because the GCC is the linchpin of the American empire. So what the GC does is this: it sells oil, and then for US dollars. Where does it put US dollars? It puts US dollars into the American stock market. All right, so this is investments of the UAE, okay, Saudi Arabia, and Kuwait into the US financial markets. As you can see, from 2012 up to today, it's been exploding. All right, because the US financial markets is one of the safest places where you can put your money. The intention is this. The intention is, hey, if I cut off oil and these countries no longer have access to US dollars, they're forced to spend whatever resources they have on protecting themselves, okay? And then guess what happens? The stock market collapses. The stock market collapses. The stock market is the real growth engine of the US economy. The entire US economy collapses with it.
Yeah, and you can just tell how how important the stock market is to Donald Trump and to his administration. I mean, what's her name? Wasn't it Trump's press secretary the other day when she was being grilled by Congress about things happening in the country, and the next thing she's pivoting to is, look at the Dow is up. Like, really? People are dying, but your metric for success is the Dow is up?
All right. There are about maybe 7 companies in America that accounts for about a quarter of stock market growth. Okay. These 7 companies, of course, are AI companies: NVIDIA, Microsoft, Google, Apple. Okay. These are the companies, and then these companies are heavily invested in by the GCC nations. So if these nations are no longer able to invest in the stock market, these companies will collapse in value. And with that, that would lead to economic depression in America. Okay, does that make sense? All right,
So the people of Iran are used to being in a very bad economic situation. I mean, they've been sanctioned for 40 years. Are the people of the US able to bear more economic disruption? Well, only time will tell. But at this point in time, Israel and the US, they need to be put in their place. You can't just do things unilaterally without regard for morality, integrity, international law. This is the way the US has always been. I mean, this is the way the US has always been. But they've been much more discreet about it. They've been able to maintain this veneer of civility. But Trump has taken the mask off. I mean, is Trump really that different from Obama? Obama bombed the hell out of the Middle East as well. So, but he did it with such finesse that you really don't get to see it. So this is a blessing in disguise for the world, that the world really sees America for what it is. Trump is taking off the veil, is revealing the true nature of the US government and the atrocities that it commits around the world. So, yeah, I wish Iran all the best in this conflict, because they are the ones that are being wronged. Anyway, that's all I have for today. Like, share, subscribe. I will see you in another live stream. It's bye for now.